Hello, this is the presentation on evidence of evolution by Ria Bhatia and Ava Laurier.
So first of all, there's geographic and geological evidence for evolution. The Earth follows patterns most related to evolution in combination with the movement of tectonic plates over geological time. So for example, there are broad groupings of organisms that had already evolved before the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea that tend to be distributed worldwide. In contrast, there are broad groupings that evolved after the breakup and they tend to appear uniquely in smaller regions of the Earth. Also, the evolution of unique species on islands is another example of how evolution and geography intersect. So, for example, most of the mammal species in Australia are marsupials, meaning they carry their young in a pouch, while most mammal species elsewhere in the world are placental, meaning they nourish their young through placenta. There's also morphological evidence of evolution, and this includes homologous features and vestigial features. So, homologous features are physical features that are shared due to evolutionary history. So, for one example, would be that the forelimbs of whales, humans, and birds all look different on the outside because they've adapted to function in different environments. But if you look at their bone structure in their forelimbs, you'll find that the organization is similar along all the species. For vestigial features, these are reduced to non-functional versions of features that serve little or no present purpose for an organism. So, for example, the human tail, which is reduced to the tailbone during development, is an example of how evolution has worked morphologically. Fossils can also show evidence of evolution. Fossils are preserved remains of previously living organisms or their traces which date from the distant past. Scientists can roughly date fossils using radiometric dating, and this is a process that measures the radioactive decay of certain elements and shows when animals died and things like that. Fossils document the existence of now extinct species, which show how different organisms have lived on Earth during different periods of the planet's history. This can help scientists reconstruct the evolutionary histories of present day species. For example, some of the best studied fossils are of horse lineage. Using these fossils, scientists have been able to reconstruct a large branching family tree for horses and their now extinct relatives. Changes in the lineage leading to modern day horses, such as the reduction of toed feet to hooves, reflect adaptation and changes in the environment due to evolution. Something that is also important for showing evidence of evolution is DNA and nucleotide sequences because they prove common ancestry. So, biologists can use sequences of related genes to figure out how different species are related to each other. So, for instance, in homologous genes, the idea that species have the same gene because they inherited from a common ancestor is very prevalent. Also, in general, the more DNA differences there are in homologous genes between two species, the more distantly related they are.
So, going into the first example of evidence of evolution, or the first example of evidence is convergent evolution. And convergent evolution is when two or more species or different organisms are independently different, but they have similar traits. So, going into the first example I have here are dolphins and sharks. They occupy similar niches and face similar challenges. And so then that kind of means they have similar adaptations, and that's why they look very similar and have the same movements, same limbs, and they have the dorsal fin. So these environments that are exactly the same help them adapt to look similar. The next example are the eastern coral snake and the scarlet king snake. These look very alike, also again because of the environment and predators, and one snake is actually a predator and the other one is mimicking the other snake to look like a predator, so it's just adaptation to the environment, and they have a similar appearance because of it. And the last example is the emu and the ostrich, and they both are wingless birds that live in Australia, and they are not related whatsoever, but because of the same environment that they're put in, they have these same adaptations and have the, no wings or wings that they can't fly with, or the same type of body shape and the long neck. So yeah, that is convergent evolution. So the next example is bacterial resistance, which is evidence of evolution by natural selection. So the example I have for this example is antibiotic resistance used in food animals like pigs, cows, etc. And so basically how antibiotic resistance happens is by natural selection. And so these antibiotics are used to kill bacteria in the animals, and eventually there are bacteria that will survive this antibiotic and eventually reproduce to become drug resistant to this antibiotic. And so this can be very dangerous and sometimes even passed on to humans because the meat is infected with a virus, and then the humans are not able to use the antibiotics to treat the bacteria because it is resistant to the bacteria or to the medication. And this is an example of evolution and natural selection because the bacteria survives and then reproduces, and this is exactly how adaptations are in the environment. After looking through all the objectives and looking at the examples, I go into the question, what is a possible explanation through evolution on how koala bears have fingerprints nearly identical to humans? Go ahead and pause the video and solve this question, and then the solution will be on the next slide. So now the solution to the question, how do koala bears have fingerprints identical to humans, is because just like humans need to get a grip on items, like, every day we hold backpacks or, just picking up items in our room or anywhere else, um, you need fingerprints to be able to get a good grip on those items. And koala bears need fingerprints too, just like humans, to hold on to better rough surfaces like branches and tree trunks. So this is actually why the koala bears, the same fingerprints, are nearly identical as humans, because it was the same use and kind of the same purpose, and that's why the koala bear adapted to have fingerprints just like humans.